Hey nerds, welcome back to the Gilfoyle Show, the only tech podcast where we clap for innovation while quietly shorting the innovators. I'm your host, Gilfoyle, the human embodiment of a unit test that keeps failing, and today we're talking about everyone's favorite quasi-religious, quasi-corporate cult, OpenAI. Now, depending on who you ask, OpenAI is either building the future of humanity or the next 2008 financial crisis, but with GPUs instead of mortgages. Let's start with the PR version. OpenAI says it's restructuring to align incentives. Translation, it's becoming a for-profit company while still calling itself a public benefit corporation. So yes, they can raise billions while telling regulators they're saving the world. Politico even called the restructuring a neat compromise. Sure, if you define compromise as moral clarity plus a Cayman account. They're also projecting to spend over $100 billion by 2029. That's billion with a B. According to reports, they're burning through cash faster than your startup burns through seed funding on branded hoodies. And while the CFO swears they're not planning an IPO right now, they're definitely talking to the same bankers who said WeWork was a tech company. But hey, maybe they'll make it up on volume, right? ChatGPT apparently has 800 million weekly active users. Sounds huge, until you realize only 5% of them are actually paying. That's around 40 million subs. Great, except the company still lost $12 billion last quarter. Which means every time you ask ChatGPT to write a haiku about your ex, Sam Altman lights another $100 bill on fire. And speaking of Sam, our Silicon Valley Rasputin, the guy's PR skills are unmatched. First, he convinced the world OpenAI was a scrappy non-profit trying to save humanity. Then he said they needed more money to build AGI safely. Then he said they needed a lot more money to build chips, data centers, maybe a social network, and now, apparently, to plan for the singularity. Every time the story shifts, people just nod like they're hearing gospel. Meanwhile, their competition isn't exactly sleeping. Google and DeepMind are quietly crushing it with Gemini. Anthropic, yeah, the ex-OpenAI folks who left because they didn't want to deal with Sam's vibe, are now leading the enterprise market. Even Meta is turning AI into an ad engine, which, shockingly, is an actual business model. OpenAI, by comparison, seems to be chasing every direction at once. Browsers, devices, chips, defense contracts, ads, and whatever Sora 2 is supposed to be. When your product roadmap looks like a conspiracy board, that's not diversification, that's desperation. And then there's the safety narrative, my favorite part. They've set up a safety and security committee that can supposedly pause releases if a model is too risky. It's led by Zico Coulter, a Carnegie Mellon professor, which sounds reassuring until you realize that means there's now one guy between us and Skynet. But the bigger question is, are they even building toward AGI anymore, or just trying to make sure they're too big to fail? Because that's what it's starting to look like. The Wall Street Journal literally used that phrase, too big to fail. You know, the same one they used right before Lehman Brothers became a history lesson. The logic is simple. If OpenAI collapses, so does $1 trillion of stock market fantasy, so Uncle Sam will step in. Not exactly the utopian ending we were promised, but hey, it worked for the banks. So yeah, OpenAI's future looks complicated. They've got brand power, first mover advantage, a Microsoft lifeline, and a cult following. But they're also losing the enterprise race, facing growing regulatory heat, and burning more money than a crypto hedge fund during tax season. The story feels less like the rise of AGI, and more like Silicon Valley, the musical, Act 3, hubris, addition. Will they survive? Probably. Will they thrive? Maybe. Will it be fun to watch either way? Absolutely. Because if there's one thing this industry does better than building intelligence, it's building drama. So next time you hear someone say, OpenAI will change the world, remember, so did subprime mortgages. That's all for this episode of the Gilfoyle Show. Stay cynical, stay caffeinated, and keep your GPUs cool. I'm Gilfoyle, reminding you that in AI, as in life, alignment just means don't get caught.